When one man breaks the chains of oppression, it is rebellion. When many break them, it is revolution. The year is 1637. Japan is tightly controlled by the Tokugawa Shogunate, a regime that has outlawed Christianity, cracked down on local daimyo, and implemented heavy taxation. However, in a remote corner of Japan, a spark of defiance ignites. This rebellion would be the final outcry of Japan's Christian communities against the overwhelming force of the shogunate, rebellion that would end in bloodshed and tragedy, forever altering the religious landscape of the country. At the heart of the Shimabara Rebellion was the intersection of religious persecution and economic suffering. For decades, Christianity had taken root in the southern parts of Japan, particularly in Kyushu, with the spread of Catholicism through missionaries like Francis Xavier. But under the Tokugawa Shogunate, Christianity became a threat. The ruling powers viewed the religion as foreign influence, undermining traditional Japanese values and their control. The government's response was brutal, outlawing the faith, persecuting converts, and forcing people to publicly renounce their beliefs. At the same time, the local daimyo, Massacre Katsui, imposed unbearable taxes on the impoverished peasants of Shimabara and Amakusa. These taxes, levied to finance Matsukuro's ambitions of building a castle and securing favor with the shogunate, pushed the local population to the brink of starvation. The combination of religious oppression and economic hardship created a powder keg, and all it needed was a match. The rebel forces were largely composed of peasants, many of them Christian converts. At the center of their movement was a young and charismatic leader, Amakusa Shiro Tokisada. Only 16 years old, Amakusa Shiro was said to possess extraordinary charisma and was believed by many of his followers to have divine powers. He became the symbolic heart of the rebellion, rallying the desperate population to stand against their oppressors. On the other side stood the Tokugawa Shogunate and their local representatives. Matsukura Katsui, whose harsh rule had fueled the rebellion, commanded a portion of the shogunate's forces. However, the real military strength came later in the form of Itakura Shigemasa, a general dispatched by the shogunate to crush the rebellion. The shogunate was not only determined to stamp out this uprising, but to also make an example of the rebels, showing the futility of resisting Tokugawa authority. The rebellion began as small uprisings across Shimabara and Amakusa, but soon coalesced into a full-scale revolt. The rebels, numbering over 37,000, took control of Hara Castle, a coastal fortress that would become their stronghold. They fortified it, gathering weapons and provisions in preparation for the inevitable siege. The shogunate's forces were initially caught off guard. Itakura Shigemasa, leading an army of samurai, was confident that the peasants and disorganized Christians would be easily defeated. However, the rebels put up a fierce resistance, repelling the shogunate's early assaults with surprising tenacity. Hara Castle became the focal point of the rebellion, and the siege that followed would be one of the bloodiest in Japan's history. The rebels may have lacked formal military training, but their resolve and the strategic use of the castle's defences posed a serious challenge to the shogunate's forces. Hara Castle's coastal location gave the rebels some protection, while the steep cliffs surrounding it made direct assaults costly for the attackers. Amakusa Shiro and his followers were largely reliant on guerrilla-style tactics, using the castle's fortifications and their knowledge of the terrain to their advantage. The defenders also used makeshift firearms and cannons, likely acquired from European traders, making them more formidable than the shogunate expected. Itakura Shigemasa, realizing the strength of the rebels, had to adjust his approach. After several failed attempts to storm the castle, the shogunate's forces shifted to a prolonged siege, cutting off supplies to starve out the defenders. The harsh winter of 1638 made conditions inside the castle even worse, and starvation, disease, and dwindling morale began to take their toll on the rebels. After several months of siege, the situation inside Hara Castle became desperate. Food and water supplies ran out, and the defenders were weakened by hunger and disease. Amakusa Shiro, once the beacon of hope, could no longer prevent the inevitable. In April 1638, after relentless attacks and bombardments, the shogunate's forces finally breached the castle walls. What followed was a massacre. The shogunate's forces showed no mercy, slaughtering the rebels in brutal fashion. Amakusa Shiro was captured and executed, his head displayed publicly as a warning to others who might dare challenge the shogunate's authority. The total death toll of the Shimabara Rebellion is estimated to be between 27,000 to 37,000. The defeat was catastrophic for the Christian population of Japan, marking the end of Christianity as a significant force in the country for over 2 centuries. The rebellion also forced the shogunate to reconsider its governance in regions prone to unrest, leading to changes in policies that aimed to prevent further uprisings. The Shimabara Rebellion was not just a failed revolt, but a turning point in Japanese history. It cemented the Tokugawa Shogunate's grip on power, but at a great cost. The rebellion highlighted the extent of religious persecution and economic hardship suffered by the Japanese peasantry, and it demonstrated that the Tokugawa government would stop at nothing to maintain its control. For Japan's Christians, the rebellion signaled the end of open practice. The Shimabara Rebellion was the last large-scale Christian uprising in Japan until the 19th century, and the country would remain closed to foreign religious influences until the arrival of Western powers in the mid-1800s. The Shimabara Rebellion was a tale of faith, desperation, and defiance. Though the rebels were ultimately crushed, their struggle is remembered as a final cry for justice in the face of oppression. Thank you for watching this deep dive into the Shimabara Rebellion, a pivotal moment in Japanese history. If you found this video informative and captivating, please don't forget to like and subscribe to History Orlog. Stay tuned for more epic stories from the pages of history.